Awesome. Welcome to the July 30th edition of the Substrate monthly. So I don't know how time works. Twice a month. Got a couple items in the docket today. The first one is just the dialects. I wanted to kind of bump the dialect PR. That's mostly for Weston at this point, because we need PMC approval, and then also for Jux. I might just go ping him directly, but I just wanted to bump that up. Because that's, I think, something I want to get it.
PR from the start. Can you give me like a 30-second what's this doing?
What is a dialect? Well, it is another YAML file, of course, that effectively tries to map. Substrate has a lot of stuff in it. It's got the relations, it's got the expressions, it's got all the functions, and there's no expectation that every system supports all of those things. But we need some way to distinguish between system X supports these things in Substrate. It's effectively what a dialect is. It is a engine-specific file that says, hey, these things are supported by this engine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's just the PR is just adding like a grammar.
Yeah, it's adding a grammar for it, basically. I think it exists partially in Substrate Go. There's a version of it that was pulled in from based on the BFP work. And David's done a bunch of work to expand it and add a bunch more configurability. So things like, not just you support joins, but you support joins of these join types. You support extension messages with these message URIs effectively.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I'm interested in it because I want to use that to make one for Data Fusion to be like, hey, this is what Data Fusion supports with some amount of testing to make sure it actually supports it correctly. But yeah, that's just a PR bump, not really an active discussion that needs to happen. No.
Sundeck was using the Go the Go version to do a lot of stuff about determining what valid snowflake was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we wanted
I think you could use it for practically determining validity for any, basically creating test suites and such for compatibility.
Mm-hmm. We're interested in it for engine routing, where we want to be able to make dialects for the engines that we support, and given a plan, be like, well, this can run on these engines based on what we know it supports and things like that.
Good question. What's the difference between a dialect and just a bunch of the extension YAML files with everything you can support? Just loading those.
Because there's a difference between if you load functions arithmetic into your system, you may not support every function in functions arithmetic. You may only support the add ones, but we still want
you
to
may not
use
support all the types. Other things.
Okay, so you load an extension which gives you everything, and then you have a dialects which says, out of this extension file, I only support this stuff. Okay.
You filter these things, and then we have some other work that's going on internally that we plan to open source, which is actually around, given a dialect and a test suite that we're developing, your dialect says you support this.
Mm-hmm.
Our test suite says that you also support this, or maybe you don't, and we should fix that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's the other thing that we want to work on as well.
Yeah, and the other thing I think you can do with it is you can do conversion, because if you know because it specifies also what the SQL form is, because in order to query the functions, it's sometimes without having full Substrate support, being able to test for BFT, testing the functions has been usually done at the SQL level.
Yeah.
It has the SQL conversion as well. So you can use that to convert to and from Substrate as well. So if you have this is what the SQL looks like. This function named this is what goes to this function in Substrate, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the same one the one in arithmetic. It can be in your own arithmetic.
So something that I envisioned as well, which I demoed in Substrate Java, which is for in the dialects as well, we could have engine-specific metadata fields. For Calcite, for example, you can have the add function. Here's the meta thing with here's the operator class it maps to in Calcite, and use runtime reflection to load that. So you can imagine having engine-specific things in the dialects to help with mapping logic. I can actually want to do something similar for Data Fusion, where right now all that's handled in the Data Fusion code. but it would be kind of neat if we could handle it at the dialect level to be like, here's your dialect file, and here's the metadata you need to be able to map it into data fusion's like operators and functions.
Right. So it's almost like a physical metadata for like the logical operators. Like the extensions says like add A, B, and then like data fusion dialect says A and B can have like this metadata or whatever.
Yeah. I support this.
Yeah,
I
and
say,
you would-
oh, checked maps to this, and unchecked or error maps to this function in data fusion.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you may have to do more things like add, just like, oh, well, I have a function version of add, which takes multiple arguments, and I've got a operator version of add, which takes 2. So you end up with multiple entries that may point to the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that all starts with getting dialects in the core so I can generate code for them to start manipulating them. Anyways, yeah, that was dialects.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, and so once this goes in, we have a lot of backporting to Go and BFT. Because BFT's got the Python version of these things. So there's actually 2 implementations to fix.
Awesome. Any more questions on dialects?
What's BFT?
Big function taxonomy.
Okay.
It is another existing testing framework, which I think, as David points out, is SQL focused. So it kind of tests things via SQL interfaces primarily. Yeah. Which
It tests whether which function. It's basically function support. Which engines have which functions and what do they do? So it's like, does everybody have divide? Does everybody handle the divide with all the options? Does it handle whatever?
Yeah. Awesome. The next topic today is canonical URIs, which is a discussion that's happening in Substrate, where the effect of TLDR is that we figured out that Substrate Go, Substrate Rust, and Substrate Java all have different URIs for the common extensions. So interoping between them is kind of a pain, and we should probably figure out the canonical URI scheme that we want for the like standard Substrate extensions, and make sure that everything's using that. It's just something I wanted to highlight in that issue to kind of have more people look at it. Yeah. And there's also like a separate like link discussion around versioning of extensions, where do we actually want to say that, oh, I am pulling in these functions arithmetic at this version. And if we want to do that, what is the versioning scheme? How does compatibility work? And these are all like separate questions. And I've tried to break the problem down into like, let's agree on a canonical URI scheme, and then let's figure out how to do versioning. It's like 2 separate things if you want to do versioning.
Try and chime in on the version discussion. I feel like we've had that discussion before and sort of landed on maybe the easiest thing is if you need to change versions, just change the name of the function. Add becomes add to. But I'll always dig up. I know we've had a discussion on this.
I'll link the separate version discussion in the doc as well.
The core is technically versioned by the fact that it's bundled with the release of the core, which you supposedly state in the message for the plan.
I think someone's mentioned that as well. Where like, is the version not implicitly the version in the plan header of what Substrate library you're using?
Yeah, but if you have your own extension files that are coming from somewhere else, they're not covered. That's the only concern I could see.
Yeah, that's also come up in the discussion around it, actually.
Yeah, I think that's like your problem.
Interesting.
You could sort of tether it, but then it's up to you to sort of track it. It's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have my stuff. It's technically the same version as core, assuming that core changes more often than you do.
With versioning, like, what are some examples of like functions that have come up that need to be versioned? I can't imagine there'd ever be like an add to with.
Well, I mean, there's been corrections, like, and especially in your own world. It's like, oh, you know what? We need this. We now have this option that we didn't have before. It's like usually, and like an option like this is how to handle rounding, or this is what to do when you get an overflow, or whatever. Those kinds of things. So yeah, those would be the kinds of things that you would most likely see a change for.
Oh, okay. And the functions.
Or actually, there's some other ones. Time values, like let's say we add a new precision. We added, but those are mostly for types. But that's what that would also be covered. It's like, oh, suddenly we have pico precision time, and so that changes everything.
But is that technically a breaking change? I guess it matters for versioning in the sense of there's now
It
new
wouldn't work for
capabilities.
somebody older. So if you tried to throw it in an older system, it should not work.
We just, like, we support adding new implementations, new types to existing functions.
Yeah, isn't that just like overloading? But so versioning is like the function signature stays the same, but like the underlying behavior is like changing or breaking or something. Not the difference.
Yeah, but if you were to take something that assumed the later values and throw it into something older, and it didn't have checks to what to do with pico because it didn't expect there was going to be a pico, then that could cause a problem.
I guess you could make the case that the versioning tells you, like, oh, I'm trying to send a plan with version 64 to a system that only supports version 60.
Right.
And that could fail then, versus you could get a failure at the mapping time of, like, I'm trying to call this function in a newer version on an older system, but you still get a failure that would tell you that you need to fix it. It's kind of the thing at that point.
Maybe. I mean, if there was maybe the behavior changed because we added a new field you didn't look at.
I think if you add a new field, like add a new parameter, add a new.
Yeah, let's say we add a field and deprecate the old one. So we only put the data in the new one, like the way count changed for a relation or something. And the functions are still talking functions. So really, it should be, you should be doing something at or higher than.
Yeah, I guess this is almost precisely why I was like, we should have a versioning discussion and we should have a canonical URI discussion, and those things can probably be separate. Where we can all broadly agree that we should have one way to reference files, and then how we do versioning is like maybe a 1.0 discussion.
Yeah.
And right now, the primary things that people have mentioned are kind of either just referencing by like the bare name, like functions Boolean, or using either the GitHub human readable URI or the GitHub machine readable URI. And they'll have different trade-offs.
Should we have a dialect?
What do you mean by dialect?
No, I mean dialect for the URI.
Oh, like I mean, actually, a fourth suggestion that's been posted is like, what if we just use like what if the actual URIs weren't URIs but namespaces, so not actual resource locators, but just have the like substrate.io namespace for functions IO and stuff like that, or R functions. And then the issue, something that came up with kind of version discussion is like, oh, if you want to use like the GitHub URIs for versioning, that versioning scheme is very strictly tied to GitHub's kind of versioning in the URI, which maybe we don't want to do because it assumes that users are putting their extensions in GitHub versus like hosting them somewhere.
Yeah, I think for the core, I mean, to me, core, those functions or extensions provided in the core is actually making sense to use the Substrate Java scheme, which is you just omit the prefix.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the official Substrate projects, you just fetch it there, get it there. And then if you use like spell out the full URI, then I think it's better be machine readable, like downloadable by the machines and then process it, because that will automate the things. So
like I think actually to your point, it makes sense to like separate the namespace from the URI and be like, there's a clear way to go from the namespace to the actual machine readable thing, but it's not encoded in the plan itself.
Right.
But yeah, lots of good questions for that, or discussions on that
Yeah.
issue.
So the version, is there like any issues or the PR for the versions?
I added it. It's issue number 829.
829. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Should probably put a 1.0 label for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions about canonical URIs?
I'm just thinking like, so if a company like comes up with their own functions Boolean YAML definition, then it would have to like use the full URL reference versus if they just want to use the default Substrate one, they can just use the path to it.
They would have to namespace it anyways, I think. And the issue right now actually is if you have two extensions that collide, a lot of systems don't check the URI anyways, which is a different problem that we need to fix. And I think actually having a canonical URI scheme would be useful for that, to be like, here's what we've agreed upon internally across our free libraries. Hey, Data Fusion, you should do this as well, and everything else.
It would be easy to just work around too. Just don't call it the same thing as the default Substrate one. Just name your file something else.
Yeah, but then you also get into fun things like Substrate Java can't handle indifferent extension files if you have the same function name.
Yeah, and you're sort of hoping, because you're scoping them in different files, like, oh, this is my my snowflake arithmetic. I can name them the same if I want to, because the name in the dialect that you refer to would be snowflake arithmetic : add.
Yeah.
So you would think that would work, but it may not, depending on the fact. Yeah, and that really ought to be fixed, because it's like if I were to write a snowflake dialect, which I'm probably not going to, but if I wrote one, then I would need to create functions to map to in Data Fusion for each one of my functions, or for each of the ones in the dialect.
Yeah. But cool. Yeah, canonical URIs are a thing. We should figure this out. That's, I think, like the two big PRs I wanted to highlight. And then Road to 1.0 is the final topic.
So I created some small like Excel spreadsheet, and then I thought, like, Victor, you're starting creating issue. So I also like created a whole bunch of issues. So that spreadsheet includes all the linked issues. So for the collations, I dig up all the existing issues and a bunch of stuff, and then there I added some like small like taxonomy about like which issues correspond to roughly what. So perhaps like we can create the tag, and then if you want to group them into some category. So for certain issues, I don't have like full context, of course, like a lot of them. So it would be great if someone, for instance, like David, if you can go to the engine compatibility definition issues and then fill out the detail, that would be great. And so I think it's a start. And then this is like first time I actually starting to using GitHub like very seriously, and I just explore the issues and the features, and it looks like there are some rudimentary things. For instance, like we can create the dependencies, like parent-child relationship between issues, and so that's a good way to track these things. And also there's a milestone that we can set a milestone and then link all the issues and pull requests to the milestone. So maybe we can create a 1.0 milestone. The milestone is associated with the ETA, so there's some, I don't know, like some commitment there, but I think we can just perpetually just keep extending the ETA. But so I think that's all another like good idea to really track these things. And then yeah, there I see there are a bunch of labels exist already, but maybe we can create a few more.
Mhm.
So yeah, and unfortunately, I want to contribute more, but I don't have control over the issues. I can create the issues, but assigning these things requires some sort of other privilege. So yeah, I can. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I was gonna say I think I added a bunch of, or I proposed to add a bunch of new committers to the project, and I think actually Young Troll, you might also be worthy of that at this point, or I think you're worthy of that at this point as committer. I don't know if that permission would give you. That might give you enough to make the parent-child relationships. There's a separation between the PMC, which is like the full GitHub admin, versus committer.
Got it.
But
Nice. Yeah.
you're doing a bunch of this work, and actually, if commitment would help you with this work, I'm gonna, you know what? I'll send an email thing onto the email list.
Yeah, I mean these are like minor things, but yeah, just clicking through some stuff. But I guess like I haven't contributed much to the thing, so I guess like I'm too early to be a committer, but
I don't think so. You've been active in discussions around the specification, which I think is equally, if not more valuable, where that's actually the harder thing IMO than doing the code stuff. But you know what? I'll send an email. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So but anyway, so it'll be great if I can get some like minimal privilege to, I don't know, like edit the issues. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can manage that. Yeah, any other items for the agenda today?
Yeah, not from my side. Yeah.
Maybe we'll give everyone half an hour back, and I can say, "Hey, David and Weston, go look at the dialect." I guess David, you wrote the dialect PR, so Weston, go look at the dialect PR, and I can go look at the URI PR.
I don't know what the state of it is. I haven't looked at it in a few weeks. But I mean, if there's something missing, I can deal with that. I'm going to have a little bit less time to be working on Substrate stuff because my new job is not going to be Substrate focused.
Noted. Sounds like a little more reason to get the dialect PR in while you have some free time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and yeah, I'll see you at the 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you.